Welcome to the Cannabis Pioneers Show. We had a great show with Roger Goodman, Representative Roger Goodman, last week. He spoke with us about the marijuana legalization industry and what's going on right now. He talked to us from the perspective of a politician. And now, on this show, I have Warren Pooley, and Warren specializes in forest protection and worldwide protective services. He's been around all around the world, from government contract to U.S. Department of State, non-governmental security sites. He's done it all, and now he's getting more and more clients coming in from the marijuana industry. So we wanted to take a look at what's going on, and this is a great insider's look at the demand for of marijuana companies towards security. This is a great insider's look of what's going on in the industry. Warren, how are you today?
I'm very good. How are you?
Great. I'm glad that you're with us, because this gives us a great perspective as to the advancement of this industry. We're playing around here between the state and federal level. There's all kinds of news that make the investment part of this very volatile. But I want to ask you, you recently went to a Cannabis Expo in California, in San Diego. Could you describe, first of all, the atmosphere at the event? Is it as exciting as going to a Bitcoin conference, or like a high-tech convention where everyone is very excited and passionate about what's going on?
Well, yeah, to me, the atmosphere was a mix. It was relaxed, but it was also very, very business-like. I've attended a lot of these cannabis expos and conventions over the past year, and the one thing I could say, it was extremely well organized. It had a really good mix of all business types, political leaders, city leaders. It had a ton of venture capitalists. They're just kind of ready to dig into the expanding California market where I am. And it just seemed to me that most people there were really there trying to understand just the tremendous upside that a well-regulated cannabis type business could have on everybody's bottom line. I mean, overall, I was really impressed with just how many people want to get into the market, break it wide open, kind of make it like the early California gold rush back in the day. And the excitement level was extremely high, I thought. I just thought everybody figured out there's an enormous financial potential for entrepreneurs in this market. And it was exciting. It almost seemed to me like the unveiling of a brand new car or a new engine, something the world had never seen before. So I thought it was really good, well organized.
That's an interesting analog. Can I ask you how many people attended to your knowledge?
Well, over the 5 days, I would say it probably averaged, and I may be cutting the numbers short, I would say it probably averaged anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 people per day, and I stayed there for all 5 days.
So it's a pretty large conference for 1,000, 2,000 people per day. And what was the cost to attend? Just so people will understand the threshold of getting into an expo.
Well, for anybody just coming to see the event, I want to say you could kind of walk into the event. But for the attendees and for some of the vendors and some of the other exhibitors, it could go anywhere from $1,000 up to, I want to say it was like around $5,000 for some of the better staged events.
Sure. So this is like a high-end expo, and this goes on a few times a year. This is certainly getting the attention of a lot of venture capitalists. I know Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal, is heavily involved. Elon Musk is starting to build batteries that will generate power for these. Bill Gates is lobbying for marijuana industry in Congress through Microsoft, and even Warren Buffett, through some of his companies, is buying warehouses. This is getting to be very legitimate. But what are some of the expected challenges facing these pioneer entrepreneurs in the marijuana industry? I mean, you're in California. Can you can you talk about some of the challenges that you're hearing from your clients, and we'll get into what you do a bit later. Is it going to be more explosive or less to manufacture legally? I mean, are companies well funded? Have you seen institutional funds entering yet? What is the situation right now with regards to the funding side of this industry?
Well, I would just say the first challenge, like any cash business or any business where a product is valuable, you're probably looking at the first line is going to be the security. Here in California and around the nation, most of these industries are not allowed to use the normal banking system. So it's really an all cash business. And with currency and the cannabis product itself being basically the lifeblood of the industry, here in California, there's a desperate need for armed, licensed, certified, vetted, and really, really well-trained security services. I can talk to my clients on any given day from Southern California to Northern California. They're involved in robberies and heists all the time. So right now, I would think the business model for the cannabis industry in California would be to seek out the highest quality security services they can find, because right now it's kind of like a hodgepodge. These dispensaries and grow operations are using friends to move product and money. They're paying some of their own clients to move product and money. Some security companies in California are operating without proper state licenses to even do basic security, and they're going up against well-armed thieves, like organized criminal groups, who realize there are tens of thousands of dollars that can be taken just in one heist. So the security part of it is paramount. Every time I speak to a client, they need to get very serious about including in their bottom line the cost of security. Secondly, I would say, like any business, the government wants its cut. So, keep it up on your record keeping, keep it up on your tax filings, maybe having on staff some legal staff to kind of help you as the business goes along, to kind of keep you in line with what the state and federal governments kind of want you to do until the classification of marijuana changes from Schedule 1 to something more like purchasing a can of beer. You just kind of want to keep up on the administrative part of it. But then a bigger part most people are not really looking at is the advertising. Once cannabis, especially in California, becomes well regulated, advertisers are going to have to spend a huge amount of their budget on advertising, just like beer and cigarettes. So if I had to sum it up, I would say security, staying on top of your administrative paperwork so you don't fall foul of the government, and self-promotion, advertising. Those are the big ones I see for this industry.
Sure, that's an interesting point, especially about advertisement. When you're a legal industry and not an illicit industry, this brings in a host of new realms of billboards, radio shows, print ads. It goes on, and you've got innovators and entrepreneurs coming in and saying, "Hey, let's deliver this in a different package or in a different way, etc." It's very, very exciting. Have you seen any cutting edge products that on this expo, and is the marijuana industry moving more into consumer type products where people are actually enjoying the consumption of marijuana, either medical or recreational, in public? You don't have to sit around the house. You can do it anywhere. Is this going to be like cigarettes?
Well, California has always been pretty free about that. Even as a cop, we didn't really, I don't want to say we didn't regulate it and we didn't enforce the law, but it has always been a recreational drug here in California. Even when it wasn't legal, it always was. So in some of the more trendier parts of Southern California, you will see, and you will, have the odor of cannabis, in restaurants, on the beach now, out near bars. I think more and more you're going to see people treat cannabis almost like you would go to a barbecue and somebody would bring a 6-pack of beer and somebody's going to bring an ounce of weed. That's just kind of how it's going to be. Going back to your other question, did I think it would be more or less expensive to manufacture legally in California? I think in the long run, it's going to become more expensive just simply because of the regulation we have here in California. And the way politicians in California are always looking to tax their way out of a problem, they realize cannabis is going to be a boom when it comes to the state's bottom line. So just the cost of regulation is automatically going to drive up, the cost of producing, packaging, manufacturing, shipping, and selling it, just because of the revenue issue we always have in California. So I would tell any of these businesses, hire yourselves a good CPA to make sure you can navigate, the myriad of taxes that are going to come along once politicians figure out this is really a cash cow. And also, I think once the larger players, the really moneyed people get into the business, the little guys, the little collectives are going to really find it hard to compete with what are going to become the Budweisers and, the large beer manufacturers. Once the larger players with the millions and billions of dollars get into the game, it's gonna drive the price up. That's just a given.
Sure, and that's a good point about politicians, because that their greed is actually playing into the hands of the pioneer companies, because they're gonna move things along quicker, and obviously in California things are speeding up, and on the flip side, it's going to deter people that are amateurs, because there's going to be a bunch of regulations that you have to go through, and if you're not set up as a legitimate company, that's gonna hurt you in the long run.
Right.
I want to switch gears here and ask you: do you think that making marijuana legal would add to the number of people using it for medical or recreational use? How many people are hiding right now and just not using something because morally, if something is illegal, they don't do it? So basically, one of the big questions that we're asking ourselves is, how big will the legal market be if the illicit market is X dollars per year? Will be much higher, because that's it. It's you can buy it at any store. It's going to be out in the open. People are going to say, hey, I'm going to try it. There's so many avenues that can open up, especially for the medical uses.
Well, I have to go back to just my background in law enforcement. I would say that the marijuana laws in California have already loosened up what was already a really loosely regulated and policed industry. There are a number of times we would come across people in the field and they would be in possession of less than an ounce of marijuana, maybe a couple of joints or something like that. And you had a conversation with the person, you just kind of let it go. It wasn't really worth the law enforcement man hours to cite a person or arrest them and process them for possession of marijuana. So I would say in the next 3 to 5 years here in California, the legal use of it, just the fact that it's legal, is going to outstrip the illegal use of it. You don't have to hide it anymore. There are really 420 friendly locations popping up all over California right now. It just used to be in somebody's backyard. Now it's on the boardwalk. That's just kind of how it's going. And so, the average person in the state is enjoying the unfettered access to it now. Even before medical marijuana, people were kind of having to sneak around and do backhanded deals with doctors and collectives to get a card. And now you can basically walk in and walk out with an ounce. So I do see it becoming more of a recreational drug. I do see it becoming more accepted in public places, and I don't doubt we're a year or two away from lounges where instead of you going to a nightclub and having a few drinks with your friends, you go to a nightclub and you have an ounce of weed. It's just that prevalent now, and I don't ever see that door closing.
That's a great way to think of it. I want to ask you, what is exactly your role in the marijuana industry? I mean, what do you do? Tell us a little bit about your company.
Well, Project 7 is a security company. It does government security. It provides personal protection to some of the biggest names in the entertainment industry in the United States. And just in the last year and a half, we kind of got into this area of cannabis-related security because a friend of ours owns a few collectives in Northern California, and he had one of his drivers taken for about $125,000 in cash. Once that happened, he called us and said, "Hey, look, I know you guys are not really in this space, but I need your expertise to kind of help me out. Can you develop a system that I can use in order to get cash into my business and then get the cash off-site in the lowest profile manner possible?" So we looked at his issue, and to us, it was nothing more than just an armed security issue. How could we go into his business without much fanfare, secure his funds, transport them away from his site, and store them? And we came up with some of those processes that we kind of used, in the Middle East and around the world as military people. And so for Project 7, I'm the senior vice president. I'm responsible for business operations, new business growth, and I manage all the security operations for the company around the world. Basically, I just kind of use my expertise in this place to help our clients, kind of thrive and maintain a really high level defensive posture in this market because it's dominated by cash, marijuana, and I just kind of want to help my clients be able to defend themselves against, some of the really, really highly organized gangs who are just out looking for the cash. They don't necessarily even want the product anymore because it's legal. They want the cash.
Now, judging by what's going on right now, what you told me about California and around the world, why do you think legalization has taken so long? Do you think it's a matter of the generations now, switching, and the dominant generation is not afraid of marijuana like they used to scare the previous generations, or maybe it's something else?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. The fact that the millennial generation now is becoming political, I think that is factor number one. And here in California is a nanny state. It wants to regulate you from the cradle to the grave. And anytime a politician is basically fighting for their political life, any number of groups, from mothers groups to law enforcement groups or any like-minded network of people, have always banded together, forcing the politician to basically look at marijuana like the devil's own seed. It didn't make any sense. So, like most people, businesses just needed to wait for society to kind of catch up to, not only the medicinal reasons why marijuana is not really a bad substance to ingest. It really took the younger generation to become political, to start a movement and force the hands of politicians and the establishment to kind of hear what they were concerned about or banish them in the next election. And politicians they blow like the wind. It just kind of depends who has the most votes, and whatever voting bloc is going to keep me in power, they are going to bend to the will of that voting bloc. So more than anything, I believe this, the political leanings kind of forced it.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, basically.
It is. And don't forget, the other thing is politicians are not blind. They are always looking for the next cash cow. And whether or not they will say it openly in public, they also realize that cannabis is going to be, it will become the tax base for most states in the U.S. within the next 10 years.
Interesting. And
it'll be recession-proof. It'll be recession-proof.
And you know why? It's because not only is Donald Trump in favor of domesticating industries, it's very hard to internationally move cannabis. So importing it is not like importing, clothing from China. It's a very interesting industry because it's not that easy to outsource it, and I think it's a very stable form of work. Like you said, it's very recession-proof. Like any other drug or alcohol, etc. It's It's something that people do no matter what the economy is doing. So
Exactly.
I want to ask you this: your business obviously grows if the marijuana business grows. How are you preparing your business for growth, especially in California? I mean, what are the type of capacity that you would need in order to really tap into the market? How big can the market in California become? Can it be a multi-billion-dollar industry per year? And how soon?
Well, in California, it will be a multi-billion-dollar industry simply because California has everything you need for explosive use of marijuana. It has young people, it has the entertainment industry, it has great beaches, and it's just the lifestyle, the laid-back lifestyle, all on its own is going to turn this into a multi-billion-dollar industry. And, we started our security interest in the cannabis area just in Los Angeles, and just since the middle of 2016, we've grown over 150%. So we kind of started out with just a few friends of ours, kind of helping them out in early 2015. And we kind of saw it more as a side revenue stream. And we only had 5 dedicated permanent security employees, conducting threat assessments for people, doing physical security, doing mobile cash and product transportation. So for us, it was more, we were kind of helping friends out. But however, last year, once we saw, it was apparent that in the polls, voters were going to overwhelmingly vote in favor of the use of recreational marijuana, our phone line and our internet lines, the inquiries just surged. And then in less than a year's time, we went from 5 full-time employees to more than 50 dedicated full-time employees handling all type of cannabis-related business, from building assessments, cash transport, product transport, conducting all types of security functions for the clients. So we saw an explosive amount of growth, and it's almost overnight how fast it grew. And now we have even had to expand into grow operations, dispensary security, even the digital security where people want CCTV cameras and physical security like card services where people have to kind of scan and come into centers and stuff like that. So it's a tremendous growth. I would say in a nutshell, we probably expect before the end of this year to add another 30 people, really highly specialized security contractors to help us with the transport part, because that seems to be where everything is kind of growing, from the grow operation to the dispensary or the local collector who actually needs the product. So we're going to grow probably another 100 to 150% here just before the end of December of this year.
So the reason I'm asking this is because I want to understand the delicate situation between the state and the federal level. I mean, it looks like business on the state level is going full throttle ahead. People are hiring, security companies. People are hiring. People are building dispensaries, paying lawyer fees and accounting fees to get permits done, raising cash. I mean, this is moving fast, as if it was all fine and regulated on the federal level, but it isn't yet. So you've spoken with government officials at the Cannabis Expo. What do you think of this whole state-federal inconsistency, and when can we expect it to move forward and resolve? I know in Canada, this is big news now. They are gonna try and get this all resolved in a matter of months and have everything legalized and regulated, and this is making a tidal wave of news right now as we're doing this interview. What do you think is the next step here in the States with regards to making this fully legalized and on the table?
Well, first, let me go back to the first part of your question. Neither the federal government nor the state of California, where I am, have many regulations in place on how to regulate the grow, the sale, the use, the transportation, or the storage of marijuana. It's kind of all just, willy-nilly. Now, I don't ever see the federal government in my lifetime, um, taking marijuana off as a Schedule 1 drug. I don't see that. However, the federal government, I don't think, wants to use the resources of the DEA to go into a state where the state has set up a legal system for growing, using, transporting, and selling of marijuana, as long as that state is also cracking down on the unregulated use. Unfortunately, here in California, the state has any number of think tanks set up, and they constantly are asking for input on how the process and the business itself should be regulated, what type of security licenses and certifications, should they be trying to impose on people. So the state itself is still far behind. They passed a law, but didn't really provide us security companies or the growers or the sellers a solid legal way to really conduct business. So it's still a legal gray area in the state of California. So what I always tell all my clients is, hey, do what you would normally do under any business license. Make sure your paperwork is airtight. Any regulation, no matter how onerous, try to comply with it and keep a paper trail. Once the state does decide that it's going to come down with some hard rules on about how it wants to regulate it, at least you're ahead of the game. Whatever regulations you've been following that they don't impose, drop them. Whatever regulations they decide to impose, follow them to the letter of the law. I would also tell businesses in the state, just buckle down for the long haul. The U.S. Congress still has quite a few dinosaurs in it. And even though we had a U.S. congressman at this event where I went, I just don't believe with the way you still have some of the really old people in Congress. They still look at marijuana as a gateway drug. They look at it as evil. And when you have a person in their 60s or 70s, and some of these guys are in their 80s, you're just not going to change their mind. And I don't see them taking a hands-off approach to any state that's going to regulate marijuana. They may not openly go into a combative type of posture with the state and the state law enforcement, but you can expect the U.S. government is still going to interfere whenever it thinks the states are kind of taking too much license with marijuana production and sales. So it's more likely to be more the same around the country until the millennial generation begins to take power in state houses and in federal seats across the country, and just kind of put an end to this backdoor prohibition that's going on across the country. So if you ask me for a time frame, I say you're looking at maybe anywhere between 5 to 15 years before this movement kind of sweeps across the country. And kind of like alcohol, it's just going to have to take a sustained amount of pressure from adults who are willing to fight for something that they want and that they believe as adults they should be able to make decisions about.
Warren Pooley, Security 7, I am very glad we had this conversation. Great interview, and all the best.
Okay, thank you. And just for your listeners, if anybody would like to get in touch with us, I can always be reached at www.project7security.com. My email address is wp@project7securitygroup.com. And my direct number is 1-800-560-3103.
We'll have that on the screen all the time during the interview. Thank you very much, Warren.
Okay, Lord, thank you.
Thanks for joining us today at the Cannabis Pioneers Show. There's a serious shift politically, socially, and economically underway. And you can see this in Canada. For example, the country just proposed legislation that will unlock a treasure trove of wealth, job creations, health benefits, and certainly a sense of freedom and accomplishment for many throughout Canada. This will certainly put positive pressure on politicians in the US who won't want to see all this money flooded to their friends across the border and not join in the party. There's a clear economic incentive for US politicians to now put the gas on and legislate marijuana use on the federal level. Make sure to stay tuned with upcoming shows. Here's what we have planned: top industry insiders, investors, pioneer entrepreneurs, legislators, you name it, the medical researchers. We plan on being the top ranked and most educational show focused on marijuana legalization. We'll have some of the greatest interviews in the coming weeks, and with the 365 Wealth Letter by Wealth Research Group and our exclusive reports, including our latest report on cannabis at wealthresearchgroup.com/cannabis profits. Thanks for tuning in today and getting productive and proactive, and keep joining us in the coming weeks.